Well, hi, Libby. How are you?
I'm good.
Good. Well, I appreciate the call. And did you find a private space?
I did. I'm so sorry. We use Skype phones and we have little cubicles, so
Oh,
we have to
yeah.
kind of maneuver around. And I actually struggled figuring out how to use the landline.
Oh. you know, I had that difficulty too because I'm so used to either my cell phone or the Skype, the Skype calling that we use on our computer.
This one has a mixture of buttons and a keypad.
Oh. yeah, things have really changed. I don't think that there's a landline phone anywhere near my office. Very interesting. But anyway, I appreciate the call. I wanted a chance to visit to talk a little bit about, well, number one, just your thoughts after sending you my decision. I mean, I know how you're feeling about it. I wanted to also make sure that you had an opportunity to just express any opinions and thoughts that you had, and then see if you were still making contact with Tiffany, which I think would be a good thing.
I sent her an email.
Okay, good. Okay, that's good. Did you have any questions about that correspondence that I sent you?
Well, I think that in our previous conversation, which you kind of deflected in your written material, was that I thought that I'd really asked you if you were just deferring to what Aaron wanted. And you said yes in our last conversation, and then you wrote that, of course, you report to someone different than she does. Because I remember asking you, couldn't you have just saved me 2 weeks if Aaron was the decision maker anyway?
Well, she was the decision maker. However, if there was anything that she missed in her analysis, then if I would have found anything, then I would have had her go back to reconsider the steps that she took, because it wouldn't be consistent with how we go through the interactive process. Now, I know how you feel about that interactive process and that they didn't have a conversation about other options. From the time she and I visited talking about it, she said that because of how the medical was written, that it asked to remove the on-call, that since they identified it as being essential, they weren't able to remove it. And that's not an error necessarily, because the employer makes the analysis and makes the determination of what is an essential function, and they're saying that this is an essential function because of how all others have to take on call, and then how historically they had to take call, and that it's listed in the job description. Mm-hmm. I know that you and I talked about the job description and how it was listed originally as like a characteristic function.
I think they wrote the essential job functions after I submitted my first medical, which to me seemed strange.
That would definitely be something that Tiffany is going to want to look into. In others that have happened like that in the past, I don't recall what the outcomes have been. I do recall that at times we have said whether the university is able to update the job description at their discretion, as long as it's consistent with what is being practiced, and that it's not being done to discriminate against an individual with a disability. So
one could argue that if they wrote the essential functions after they received medical request, that they were actually discriminating.
Yeah, that'll definitely be something that Tiffany will be able to evaluate, especially with her legal background.
Okay. What else do we need to talk about, Nathan?
Well, we just need to talk about the ADA referral program, because I'm getting a lot of pressure from from healthcare to begin the program now that we've completed the review through our office.
Does that go along with the things online that show your process? Because I saw that at the end of, if I disagreed with it, then it went to appeal.
Right, it doesn't necessarily slow down when we would start the ADA referral program. And I did check with Tiffany on that, and she said healthcare can choose to continue with the ADA referral program, but I will be conducting the review during that time. And so if there's any sort of finding, and if she comes back and says that healthcare was in the wrong, then we would remove you promptly from the ADA referral program.
Mm-hmm. That's fine. So what don't I know about it that I need to know?
Well, basically, if we were to start it, at that point in time, any positions that you would apply for on campus, so you would search for jobs that you may have an interest in applying for, and if you apply, you just need to notify me when you applied and what you applied for. And
Okay.
you can do that either via email or via phone.
Mm-hmm.
And then if the position is a lateral position or a demotion, we would just evaluate if you meet the minimum qualifications. And if you do, then we would ask the hiring department to include you in their list of interviewees. So that's the most important thing that we probably did not go over.
Well, I have searched the 3A jobs, and there are very few that use any of my skills.
Okay. Have you found any that are maybe a 4A or 5A even? Because you can send those to me as well. And I can certainly, if you meet the minimum quals for those, I could argue likely in your favor to be included on the interview list.
Am I required in this process to take a lesser position?
No, you're not required to do that.
But I would still be kicked out after 89 days or whatever it is now.
Yeah, after the 90 days. Well, after the 90 days, the program ends, but if you have any FMLA that is entitled to you or any paid leave accruals that are entitled to you, then you would use those. You would use those.
But I would no longer work for the department.
At that point in time, after the 90 days, you're still on there. You're still actually in the department until you exhaust all of that leave time. And after you've exhausted your paid leave accruals, you'd still be an employee of the department. You're an employee of the department throughout the entire duration.
But I can't do work after the 90 days.
That would, again, be at the discretion of the department. I can't mandate that they have you work after the 90-day ADA referral program.
Okay.
My guess is you'll probably be done with Tiffany's evaluation well before that. Which, depending on the outcome there, could change.
So when you have reviewed, as you reviewed me, have you ever made a different choice? Or have you always gone along with what the reviewer said?
Well, that's a good question. So I do so few of those, and I do recall a review that I completed, but this is going back a number of years.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, I did I was not in favor of, but I did rule in favor of the employee, and the department did go back. And
so would you say 1 out of 500?
No, I probably only do maybe 1 to 3 of these a year.
Oh, okay.
So it's not many.
Okay. Who would you say is the advocate for the employee in this process when a doctor has asked them to change their schedule?
Well, usually, for this process, I'm not sure if anyone is to be assigned that role. What we see a lot with the cases that we work with on this side of campus is a lot of times it is our office, and if not our office, then it would be a lot of times the local HR individual. But our office generally is that neutral, right down the middle, trying to protect the employee, make sure that they have every opportunity to succeed and be accommodated, and then we also are trying to advise the departments so there's no risk for the unit to try to mitigate risk. So on our side of campus, it would be mostly our office. So I'm not sure for the LDA office if they played that role very often.
Well, as I read through all the EEOC stuff and all the ADA stuff, it sounds like there is supposed to be an advocacy factor for the person with the disability. And I have not experienced that. That's why I kind of wondered, from your perspective, who is it then, if you do just what Erin says, then why would I even have my doctor write another letter, which is obviously what my doctor did. $250 to see the doctor. Why would I even do that if Erin, as you said last time, drew a line in the sand and there's no hope?
Well, first of all, I want to make sure I clarify that I would just, however you worded it, that she would still make the call. Because if I did find an error in the process that they use, then I would outline that in my write-up. It was hard for me on this one, I will be honest, because although they may not have had quite the length of discussion that normally we would have out of our office, they checked the boxes, so to speak, and did evaluate the medical information, looked to see what job duties it would impact, and that was all clear information that they received from the doctor, and then they determined that it was essential function. So.
But they didn't give me any other choices, and it sounds to me when I read through all the ADA things that the choices for accommodation are supposed to be part of a conversation with an employee.
Right. Well, what I would recommend at this point is if you have other ideas for accommodations, I would like to think that Erin would hear those out. At least she would need to hear those out.
Yeah. What's going to happen to the letter I submitted to you today?
So the letter that I received from you today, I mean, it really needs to be shared back to the LDA office.
What difference could it possibly make?
Well, I'm not 100% sure. Let me pull up the letter. Okay, here, I just got to pull it up here. I mean, she's stating that it is still her medical opinion that you do not work overnights, but then she says at least temporarily. It is in both our hopes that this request doesn't put her in long-term employment jeopardy. So, I think if anything, Erin would come back to you and ask you about at least temporarily. What would temporarily be? Like what you and I talked about. Maybe it'd be for 2, 3, 4 months, and then evaluate.
Doesn't she say that she will look at it again in a certain amount of time?
That's what, yeah, if we have a temporary accommodation put in place, we set a time to check back in and see how it's been going.
Yeah.
And if it's been effective, and if you'd be able to then do overnights again in some capacity. and I have talked about in the past, like trying to schedule days off after, or maybe even before. Maybe you just take on call hours, and that's the only thing you do for those 2 days. For 6 months. So I think that if this is shared with Erin and her team, I would think that they would look at that language that says at least temporarily and then ask for clarification, if you wanted to try something temporarily, how long would that be?
Okay, I thought the doctor had written something like that, but I didn't read it very closely. She was pretty specific on what she wanted to write.
Yeah. Yeah, I really should pass this along to the LDA office, since it has that language in there that could, potentially change some things. Or would you like to send it to her directly and ask to visit?
Not at all.
Okay. Okay.
I'm not leaving, but okay, I'll take it. Okay. Just a second, Nathan.
Oh, sure.
I'm giving a coat.
Okay.
From this little auntie office, where mostly people keep coats. Well, what I'm curious about is, so I jumped through another hoop. What difference is it going to make?
Well,
And what hoops is an employee required to jump through if they have a disability?
shouldn't have to jump through any hoops. I think that this modified medical, I don't know if you consider it modified, but I think just the way that the doctor wrote it, what could be an outcome that could be in your favor is maybe there's a time frame where you could try not taking overnights for a temporary period of time, and maybe that is, 1, 2, 3 months or so, and then check in at the end of that, check back in with your doctor and see, what the doctor recommends. If the doctor then at the end of that period of time says, no, this really needs to continue, then we may still be back where we are right now, but at least it gives you some time to at least try to work in your job without the overnight shifts.
Mm-hmm.
And that would prolong having to start ADA referral.
It seems to me that no matter what I do, it will make no difference. And it seems to me that that is a burden of proof that is put on a patient that seems unreasonable. This was not my idea, as the doctor says. I gave in to the doctor who thought I might sleep better and be able to concentrate better. And I would be curious if other patients are put through the same rigmarole, or if it's just healthcare patients.
That's a very good question. I don't know the answer to it. I don't get involved with many of the healthcare cases until it gets to the ADA referral point in time or a review, and in this case it happened to be both.
Yeah.
I mean, would it be okay if I reached out to Erin, shared this medical, and ask her what she plans to do with this, and recommend, at least a response, either written or verbally? Maybe even, you said that you do feel comfortable with your local HR, Heidi?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's obvious to me that non-medical people are making medical decisions, which is another one of my concerns.
Sure.
I gave you the information that you asked me for in our last written correspondence. So I asked my doctor to write a letter. And whether or not my doctor's orders are followed by someone with a master's degree in administration, it would seem to me that another doctor or doctors should be involved.
Right.
What else do we have to cover, Nathan?
I don't think we have anything else to cover. Are you interested in at least trying to not work on call for a temporary period of time?
Of course.
I mean, and maybe we both know that at the end of that temporary period of time, it may just result in, a continued recommendation and not work overnights at all. But I mean, at least we could trial it, because you haven't been working overnights for how long? How long has it been?
Since November 15th.
November 15th. And has anything changed?
I think the stress of this process has actually made my health worse.
Sure.
But I'm on a new medicine to help me sleep, and I'm hopeful about it.
Well, I am going to reach out to Erin. I'm going to pass this information along and ask her to please follow up with you, and make a determination on what she's going to do with this new information, because we have new medical, just like I described to you before. We need to review it, we need to respond to it, and then move forward from there. So I'm going to pass this along to her, and I really appreciate you getting this to me.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to make any difference.
Well, if it does not, then please continue to work with Tiffany as you have started to. I'll also share with Tiffany this information that you did provide us with, some new medical. This would be probably very important for her to know that you did provide it, and ask her what her plan is for meeting with you and going through the appeal process and complaint process.
Okay.
Okay? Anything else? I'm so sorry that you are in this situation.
I have no choices. I have no choices. And this is ending my career. This is ending my ministry. I understand. But your understanding makes no difference to me. So that's why I think this process, and I'm going to ask staff council to look at it, that an advocate should be provided for the employee when the enterprise will not accept doctors' recommendations.
Okay. Well, is there anything else that I can help with at this point in time?
No, thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for the call, and I'll be back in touch with you, probably via email, after I pass this medical along and I hear what Erin is going to do with it.
Yep. Okay. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
there.